MultimediaJay radio style.
So, SimCity. Oh, brother, this is going to be quite ranty. Well, for those of you folks that have been living under the biggest rock in the world, or at least don't follow gaming news, last week SimCity became the latest classic game series to be utterly butchered by gaming practices nowadays, as well as DRM. The latest SimCity suffered from the exact, and I mean exact, same problems with always-on DRM as Diablo 3 did last year. 1 year later, companies still haven't learned their lesson. However many years it's been since Ubisoft tried the same thing, it didn't work, and they had to scrap the whole thing, companies still haven't learned their lesson. Instead, we've had Activision Blizzard, and now EA doing this crap. When does it stop? When does it end? And how many bobbleheads are these companies going to get defending their ridiculous actions before it does? Seriously. The problem here is not that folks want to prevent piracy. The problem here is not that folks want to take single-player games and move them to the cloud. The problem here is that there is absolutely no reason for SimCity, of all games, to be cloud-only. It's more than possible. It's you managing a city. It's more than possible to just play a single-player offline version of the game and not lose that much content. There's no reason. But apparently companies will come up with any excuse they can whatsoever to force this online-only DRM, or online all-the-time DRM crap for single-player games down people's throats. Just a couple more incidents, and the shock factor will wear off, and the general public, like a bunch of really stupid sheep or lemmings or whatever group analogy you want to apply here, will just go along with it no matter how much it eats away at the fact that they need to be connected to the internet because of a single-player offline game. And, well, maybe not offline all the time, but if you're just playing SimCity by yourself, why, again, do you need an internet part of it at all? Anywhere? You don't. Always-on DRM is a gigantic step backwards, even compared to previous games that did single-player, multiplayer, like Test Drive Unlimited, the Test Drive Unlimited series, for example. I have Test Drive Unlimited, and I have Test Drive Unlimited 2, and I've done both types of accounts on both types of games. The way it works is you can make an offline or an online account, and you have basically two separate games, whether you play offline or play online, but at least you have the option of offline play. And now that the Test Drive Unlimited servers have been shut down, the only way to play the original Test Drive Unlimited is offline. Test Drive Unlimited 2, sadly, has been affected by Atari's recent financial woes as the whole bankruptcy thing goes on, and the server and general support for the game has been spotty at best. Sometimes you'll go to play, bam, servers go down. You got to switch to your offline account, things like that, and then it's a long time before everything comes back up. Actually, there were some very furious people on Steam who bought Test Drive Unlimited 2, but they couldn't create an account because Atari's website for creating accounts was broken. So they couldn't play online. They could have played in offline. They could play in offline mode at least. But this is the thing. Offline mode as a backup is a feature that always-on DRM is not going to coexist with. Even now, with games that have servers and you have to switch to offline mode when the servers go down, that standard is going to slowly be eroded away by this online all-the-time DRM. And then there's, of course, the issues where a game like SimCity could be something you could play on on your laptop on a long plane flight or something like that. And or it could be something where if the internet goes out, which if you have the right ISP, big long broadband outages are still a regular thing, not to be too surprised at. Well, guess what? You're thrown out of your game and stuff like that. But the ultimate problem with always-on DRM is and will always will be the assault on consumer freedoms. And for what? Supposedly reducing piracy? In the war between technology and the technology to defeat the technology, DRM, digital rights management, and other anti-piracy measures that have been done over the years have been probably one of the biggest examples of how the technology continuously gets defeated. We live in a world where nerds, geeks, and other assorted software pirates, hackers, and crackers have a blast while the industry just futilely swats at nothing. They throw haymakers at open air. It's ridiculous, really. And the people that do end up getting slapped in the face are the consumers who actually support the company by buying legitimate copies of the game. EA in particular is pretty interesting because of what happened with Spore. I was reading about when the game Spore first launched, the DRM actually hurt legitimate owners of the game while the people who pirated it were having a blast with it and stuff like that. But, yeah, how much more are people going to get slapped in the face because of DRM? Actually, there's a game. I actually now have well, I don't have two games that won't install because of DRM, but I do have one game that will not install because of DRM now. Rayman Arena. I bought the PC version. It's like a Rayman version of Mario Kart, but instead of the folks being in go-karts, they're running around on their feet, the various Rayman series characters. The DRM that I have in that game requires, if you have two CD-ROM drives, both CDs to be in the drives at the same time. But for whatever reason, even if I put both the CDs in optical drives, it won't detect them and it won't install the game. So I've got a completely useless game that I paid $30 for 10 years ago now, just sitting on my shelf. I've also deliberately skipped games because of DRM in the past. Red Alert 3 was the first one. Red Alert 3 gave you a limited number of installs, and people were up in arms about that because being a PC game, of course, what if your hard drive breaks, or what if, say, your hardware signature changes because you upgrade your video card or something, as the gamers that buy these games will tend to do? Limited installs is trouble waiting to happen. And so the folks who made the game went back and forth. Finally, they relaxed the DRM a little bit, but I'm waiting for it to be completely gone before I even bother with Red Alert 3. So even though I was a huge fan of Red Alert 2, Yuri's Revenge, etc., I deliberately skipped Red Alert 3 because of the DRM. Fast forward a few years, RPG Maker XP. Actually, no, I do have two applications, I should say, that I'm not using because of DRM. Rayman Arena being one of them, RPG Maker XP being the other. I paid like $70, $80 for this program all those years ago when it first came out, and they had the trailer saying, "Hey, go to download.com and buy this program." And so I did. But it's protected by Protexis, and after you've installed the game on X amount of computers, read X amount of hardware upgrades, you have to contact Protexis support and wait a day or two for them to send you another key in order to reinstall your own program that you paid $70 or $80 for. This is why I just went with RPG Maker VX Ace on Steam, so I don't have to deal with this nonsense, so it can be tied to my Steam account, and that's exactly the experience I've had with the program. But RPG Maker XP, and here's the funny part, on YouTube, there are actually how-to videos showing keygen programs breaking into the program in under a minute. So I'd have to wait a day or two for Protexis support to send me another software key, while pirates and hackers could just crack the program in under a minute. This is what DRM does. Absolutely nothing when it comes to piracy, and absolutely everything when it comes to assuming your customers are guilty until proven innocent and just slapping them in the face. Money-paying customers, boom, right across the chops. It's pointless. It doesn't need to continue. And consumers are morons for in any way, shape, or form creating excuses, being fanboys, or being any other kind. I would say shills, but they're not even paid for this. Why someone would shill for a company without getting paid for it is beyond me. But the excuses for this nonsense need to stop. This is bad. It is hurting PC gaming. And when we wonder why PC gaming seems to keep dying and coming back every couple of years, this is one of the big reasons why. Because if you're not some console blah blah whatever, then you're assumed to be a criminal who wants to steal everything. Bad move, gaming industry. Bad move. PC gamers are among some of the most enthusiastic gamers in existence. What else would drive somebody to still spend 4 digits on a computer? when such a thing hasn't been commonplace since the 1990s. PC gaming is probably one of the things that's keeping desktops alive to begin with. There's so many other devices that do all the mainstream stuff nowadays, but you still need a high-end desktop in order to play games with the settings maxed out, have it look absolutely beautiful, even compared to what's on the consoles. Especially when, as the life cycles for consoles go beyond the 5-year mark, as we've seen with the PS3, and the Xbox 360, of course, and will probably happen again with the next generation of consoles. As this stuff continues happening, we're going to see PC gaming become even more relevant because it'll be the only way to upgrade your hardware in between the now extended generations of consoles. But the worst part about all of this is besides the DRM, is that the victims of this DRM crap are long-running gaming series that have been popular and well-known and well-loved for many years. In the case of Diablo, it was one thing because, okay, so we haven't had a Diablo game in how long? And this was kind of like Diablo 3 was kind of like a reboot of the series, similar to Duke Nukem Forever, but not as much of a gap between the last couple of games. But SimCity is a game series that's been going on and on and on. I actually have SimCity 4. Probably gonna get probably gonna upgrade to like some Game of the Year edition or something to get all the expansions for it. But yeah, I'm hearing actually some of the reviews of the new SimCity that try to get past the DRM problems are saying, nah, you're better off just sticking to SimCity 4, except for some quality of life improvements, like I think piping's been taken out, so you don't have to draw sewer pipes underground anymore. Besides some quality of life improvements, actually the size of the cities you can make in the new SimCity are actually smaller than previous games, from what I've heard. But yeah, I still have SimCity 4, and I think that's what I'm going to end up sticking with. Actually, I've got the game right here because I recently reinstalled it without having to do this DRM crap. I have the SimCity 4 Deluxe Edition that includes the original and Rush Hour, so I did wait before getting this game. But yeah, this game runs A-OK, and it's SimCity in pseudo 3D. It's SimCity in pseudo 3D. Got a lot of nice features, and from what I understand from the reviews I'm reading, a lot of people are recommending just stick with SimCity 4 and see if EA gets their stuff together for the next SimCity after this utter butchery. But again, you know, this is SimCity that's been damaged by this little fiasco here. It's not like some weird game that nobody's ever heard of or hasn't hardly been around. This is a long-running, well-known, well-loved series that's been shot in the foot by this always-on DRM crap. What's next? Maybe if Nintendo does a Sega Dreamcast and they decided to get out of the hardware market and just make Mario and Zelda games and Metroid games for all platforms, what are we going to see next? DRM on a Super Mario game? Huh. Perish the thought. It'd be sad if it ever did happen, but when SimCity, of all franchises, is getting dragged through the mud by this obsession with DRM in the gaming industry, it really makes me wonder what game is going to get wrecked next. I mean, this seems to be the way it works, you know. Yeah, you know, remember all those gamers back in the 80s and 90s that are grown up and are now grown adults now? Let's butcher their childhoods with all these terrible things like Bomberman Act Zero and Duke Nukem Forever and the DRM crap and Diablo 3 and SimCity and... yeah. When does it stop? Does it ever stop? What is it going to take to wake up this industry and realize they need to stop taking gamers for granted? I mean, how many more times do video games have to crash and then come roaring back because of crap like this? I don't know, and maybe I shouldn't want to know the answer to that question. Anyway, SimCity, I'm not impressed about it. There's also an article going around, too, about there was this EA employee, I guess, who wrote an anonymous letter talking about how when people were complaining about the game in beta, they actually got banned because of complaining about the DRM. Folks, I think it's pretty plain to see here that DRM stuff like this is an exercise in futility. And when you can't even play a single-player game properly because of DRM that requires an internet connection, that is when this type of stuff has completely and totally jumped the shark. Seriously. Let's just hope that the other games are like Ubisoft, the other companies get like Ubisoft and realize that this crap, this always-on DRM, is an exercise in futility, and it would be more worth it to be nice to their paying customers instead of continually penalizing them like this for buying the game legitimately, whereas the hackers, crackers, and software pirates get off scot-free, and in many cases get a better gaming experience because the gotcha stuff isn't running on top of the game. But that's another discussion for another day. Till next time, you've been listening to Multimedia J Radio Style. I'm Multimedia J. Thanks for listening. This is Multimedia J signing off. I'm confusing my own sign-off now because of this crap. This is Multimedia J signing off. Thanks for listening, and thanks for stopping by.